YouTube, we are back with another video. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Justin with Prime Landscaping. So I'm here today, help you guys out, help out the guys who are just starting out, who want to get into the hardscape business, who want to get into the landscape business. If I grew up landscaping, I grew up hardscaping, pavers. This video is for those guys who are looking to start out with the small patios, the small projects. And I'm just going to show you guys how to measure for a patio and how I estimate it and what goes into an estimate for a patio or a paver patio of this size, even a little bit bigger. And stay tuned for the full breakdown because it might not be as simple as you guys think it is. If somebody ever wants to do like a large patio, right? Let's just say this L-shaped over here, this entire area. Whenever you guys want to measure, like, let's just say bigger areas, you always want to measure it in basically two-dimensional rectangles, right? This is one rectangle right here. So now you have the square footage for this. And then this is another rectangle, right? Length times width, you'll get the square footage for this. And then you just add up the square footage from both rectangles, and then that's your total square footage for the job. And that'll be the first step to you knowing how to price the job. So when you're going to measure a patio, right, it's very simple. A measuring tape, that's all you need. That's really all you need. Don't listen to these guys online who have all these fancy electronic tools that are like so expensive, that measure off satellite and that Mosier thing. Like don't waste your money on that if you're just starting out. If you're new, measuring tape, that's all you need. I have a measuring wheel as well. This is like 35 bucks from Home Depot. However, I actually don't recommend you get one. I recommend a measuring wheel. You could kind of roll up on its own. The reason I say that is because the measuring wheel actually lied to me one time. I measured a patio that was 26 feet and it actually measured 16 feet. So it was off by 10 feet. Measuring tape, measuring wheel, the ones that, you know, stretch out and you roll it back, in. You could get one of these, you just gotta be very careful with it. Keep it unweathered, clean, and double check it. Always double check the measurements every now and then. So let's get into the measuring. Length times width, just like I said. So we're gonna go right here to this corner. And basically, you're just gonna go, you're gonna put it down at the wall, quick, professional, fast, and that's it. So kind of just eye it, right? Got about 15 feet. 15 feet is the length. And then you do the same thing for the width. And like I said, we're gonna line it up with the house. So we got about 10 feet right there. So when you're measuring patios and stuff like that, if you're doing a lot of estimates throughout the day, carry around a notepad, iPad, or put it in your notes. It's as simple as that, because you're gonna leave here, you're gonna leave the client's house, you're gonna go do a million things, and then you're gonna be like, oh man, was it 17 by 33? Was it 50 by 5? Like all these crazy numbers, and then you're gonna have to make some excuse as to why you have to come back, and that is not a good look. Write it down and turn over your estimates as fast as possible. We're just gonna measure out this way 15 feet. Let's just say they wanted 15 feet right off of the house. So that's my 15-foot mark right there. Let's just say they wanted to go pretty much from the end of the chimney here to where that patio number 1 is originally ending, which is over there by the deck stairs, right? I mean, there's really no perfect way to do this, right? Like, you're not gonna be out here shooting a string line from the chimney to here and squaring it and making sure you start right at the correct spot. There really is no time for that. You eye it, get it as close as you can. You reset your wheel, right? And in the end, I mean, you add 10% to your number, 5 to 10% of square footage to your number anyways. Pretty much we're finishing right up at the deck, just like I said. So right on the wheel, we got 25 feet. So we have a 15 by 25 patio over here. It is just one patio. So the reason I would do it this way is so I can provide the homeowner with 2 different arrangements of the patio, right? Patio number 1 being the small little patio here in the corner, and then arrangement number 2 would be obviously the entire thing. And the reason I like to do that is because then I'm able to present to the homeowner or client 2 separate estimates, and that way the homeowner can make their decision on whether they're gonna go with arrangement 1 or arrangement 2 based on whatever aligns with their budget. But for us, we're gonna be profitable whether they go for arrangement number 1 or arrangement number 2. The second step is actually accessibility. So right over here, we have a gate, an entryway, As you guys can see, the road is right there. The driveway is out in the front. Also, there's another entryway on the other side of the property that we can come into. It's very open here. Nothing really in our way besides a pool here. You could easily bring a skid steer back here. If you're doing a job of this size, you do not need a full-size skid steer. If you have one, great. If you don't, you could definitely do it by hand. It's not a big deal. If you have a mini skid steer, great. If you have a mini excavator, great. It's really not a big job, but yeah, guys, like I said, that is step number 2. And then step number 3 is gonna be obviously calculating your materials and adding in your labor, overhead, and profit. So now that I have the measurements, I'm gonna go ahead and get back to my computer and show you guys the full breakdown on how I would price this job. All right, guys, I am back at the computer and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you guys how I would price out this job. So just like when we were on site, here is a basic diagram I have here in front of me. You know, the same measurements from the site, right? We have 15 by 10, which gives us 150 square feet. Then I have a 25-foot length on this side of the patio over here and 15 over here, which gives us a total of 375 square feet. We have a total of 525 square feet. So basically what I do is I take the measurements and I punch it all into a Paver-based aggregate calculator, right? I have an app. There is many websites out there that do the same exact thing. There's spreadsheets that you can make that will also do the same exact thing. I use an app called Patio Calc. I've been using it for the last 5 years. It's pretty accurate for me. And obviously, you know, I've been doing this for some time, so I know when I'm looking at, let's just say this 15 by 10 patio, and it tells me that I need 4 tons of base. It makes sense to me, right? Because I've been doing it for a long time now, and 4 tons going into 150 square foot patio makes sense. So whatever app or website you guys use, just make sure you guys do your due diligence and make sure you guys know that, you know, these apps aren't always 100% accurate. So you can fluff it up and add tonnage or anything like that if you need to. But we're all good here on my end. So basically, for me to do this entire patio, which is 525 square feet, I'm going to need 14 tons of base and 2.5 tons of sand, right? And for me, it's quite simple, right? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically add up all my material, mark it up, and then add in my labor, overhead, and profit. And then everything gets added up together, which creates basically a total investment, which is basically the price for that job. So here, where I'm from, 14 tons, I get it for about $35 a ton. So 14 times 35 is $4.90, right? And sand, I get it for about $50 a ton. So 2.5 times 50 equals 125, right? So basically in aggregates, I'm going to be spending a total of $615. And that is only my paver base, which here we use 3/4 inch gravel. We do open graded base only, and $125 worth of screed. We use 1/4 inch chips. So I still have to figure out my paver material cost as well as the sand. And then over here, we use a concrete edge as our paver restraint on the sides. I know a lot of guys use different things. Plastic edging, metal edging. Everyone has a different rule of thumb, so just go with whatever you feel comfortable with. I recommend concrete edge restraint. We've been using that for a long time. I've seen patios built like that forever, and I don't see any issues with it. Anytime I go to a property that has plastic edging, I always see it buckled up and broken. But hey, some people stand by it. I don't know why, but that's on them. Moving on, we have $615 worth of aggregate here so far. So basically now I have to figure out my paver price. So I know that my pavers are going to cost me, based off of 525 square feet. I get pavers for about, it obviously depends on what the customer is looking to do or whatever pattern, color, and all that stuff, but we're going to keep it basic. We're going to go 525 square feet. An average price for paver nowadays is $4. So pavers are going to cost $2,100, right? For sand, for polymeric sand, which goes in between the joints of the pavers, we're going to need 7 bags. And now I know that because we use Gator Alliance and I know how much coverage that specific brand gives me. So if you guys are out there, you guys use a different brand, look into the coverage of that bag. Look into the coverage of that manufacturer, whatever the coverage is there, base your numbers off of that. So I need 7 bags of the Gator Alliance polymeric sand. I get it for about $30 a bag. So we're gonna go 7 times 30. That is gonna cost us $210. Now the last thing that we need to complete this all is gonna be our concrete edge restraint. And I've been doing this for a while. I know there is softwares that are out there that can help you calculate exactly how much concrete edge you need, but concrete is pretty cheap and you're not gonna mess up on it big time. I know just by looking at this, I'm probably gonna need just 3 bags, which is $15. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that right here. And that is basically all my materials for this specific job. That is all I'm gonna need. Paver base, sand, the actual pavers, the polymeric sand, and then the concrete edge restraint, right? So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add up all my materials and show you guys what I do next. All right, guys, so came out here with my total. It's gonna be $2,940 for the entire materials for this job, right? And what I do is, because we got to make money on the materials, right? You're going around, you're picking this stuff up, you're going around, you're calling, you're getting this stuff delivered, you got to get paid for everything that you do. So what I like to do is I actually mark up my materials just like anybody else does, just like any other company does, just like Walmart does. You think that they don't mark up their stuff? No. Everyone marks up their stuff. So I like to mark up my things by 30%. So you want to go ahead and you want to take your material cost, which here for me is $2,940, and you add 30%. The 30% works for us. The reason it does is because I do my numbers every single year. I do my overhead, my projected income, and then I mess around with my material cost and what I'm going to make on my materials that year based off of last year's numbers and then what I'm projected to do this year. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to add 30% to this $2,940, which brings us a total of $3,822. Now that we have these numbers, pretty much that is half of the estimate. You have all your materials, you added it all up together, you made sure it was correct, and you added 30% to it, which is your markup. So you're making money on the materials as well. The next thing for you to do is obviously calculate the labor. And a job of this size will take my company, I'd say honestly like a day and a half to do. And that is obviously because we are experienced, we have equipment, the accessibility of the job, which I showed you guys in the video when we were on site. I know for me that this job will take us exactly a day and a half. You never know what could happen, so we're gonna round up. This is gonna be a 2-day job with 4 guys. My hardscape crew is 4 guys. You don't really need 4 guys for this job. If you have equipment, really only need like 2 or 3, but whatever, we're gonna base it off my 4 guys. We're gonna go 4 guys that are there 8 hours a day. So 4 times 8, very simple, 32 man hours, right? And like I said, guys, this is just 1 day. So I need to do that times 2. So it's a total of 64 man hours. Now that we're getting a lot closer to the final number, right? I know that my material cost is $3,822. I know that it's going to take my company 64 man hours to complete this job. And basically, I just take the amount of man hours and multiply it by my hourly rate. Now, my hourly rate for me is $85 an hour. That hourly rate covers the salaries for the employees and admins. That covers overhead, and that's also covering our profit. The way I came out with those numbers is because, like I said, I do my numbers every single year, and it's based off of many different things: production capacity, the amount of hours and months you work, and it's also going to depend on where you are and obviously how much overhead you have. So I've spent a lot of money trying to figure out my numbers, especially when I first started out, and then I finally got it dialed in, which makes estimating like this obviously a lot faster. It makes it a lot easier, and also I know that I'm accurate, right? I know that if it takes us 64 man hours, I know I need to make $85 an hour per guy for it to even make sense for us. We're gonna go 64 man hours times $85 an hour, like I said, and that number is $5,440. That's basically my price to install this patio. That includes my labor, that includes my overhead, That includes my profit. So the only thing that I need to add to this is the original number that we made, which is the material cost, which is $3,822. We're going to go ahead, we're going to add these two things together, which is going to give us the total cost for this project here. $9,262. That is the total cost for this project. And now if you're feeling lucky, you could just round this up to 9,500. And if they try to talk you down, you go right back down to your original number, right? That is how I price my jobs here in New York. And I know a lot of guys out there are still pricing per square foot. And even if you take this 9,262 number and you divide it by the amount of square footage that we got here, let's see what it comes at. It comes out to $17 a square foot. It's a really good number. It's actually quite interesting when you don't know your numbers and you listen to other people. Another guy would come in here and probably price this by square foot, industry standard, $20 a square foot, just like everybody's saying online, right? They don't know their numbers. They're going to go ahead and price this 525 square foot patio at $20 a square foot. They're going to come in a lot more expensive than me, right? If we're both bidding it together. And usually what happens is those guys get priced out by guys like me. I'm picking up all these jobs and I'm making money. Like I said, I'm recovering my overhead. I'm recovering, the employee's pay rate. I'm recovering my profit. I'm making money. I know I'm making money. That's what happens when you don't know your numbers and you're just pricing per square foot. Now, I'm not going to say I don't price per square foot, right? This patio just came out to pretty much $17 a square foot or 18 if you round it. If I go to the neighbor and he wants the same exact thing, I'm just going to take the square footage and then multiply it by 18. But that's because I already did one exactly the same way. If it's literally the neighbor, then it's literally going to cost us the same exact thing, right? All right, guys. So basically, all in all, this is what it would cost the homeowner for us to come in and install their patio. You guys saw, I went ahead, I added everything up that I needed. I accounted for my base, my sand, my pavers, my polymeric sand, my concrete edge restraint. I added a 30% markup to my materials. I knew how many days and hours it would take my crew to do this. I put that all together and came out with a total price of $9,262. So just like that, homeowner is going to get an estimate. When you go ahead and send over the estimate on whatever software you use, or you do it on Doc or anything like that, you want to make sure that you're descriptive as possible. You want to put in the square footage. You want to put in, the length times width even, because you don't want to happen is you maybe measured it incorrectly. And now what happens is you calculated for 525 square feet and it actually was 700. So now you have to eat the cost, right? Be as descriptive as possible, because if that is the case, you're being honest, right? You priced it at 525 square feet. And another thing, you don't have to add that you marked up the materials. You don't have to add how many tons of base you're doing, how many tons of sand you're doing, how many bags of polymeric sand you're bringing in. I've seen some guys do that. A lot of homeowners out there, clients, will try to penny pick at you, try to watch what you bring. It's not worth it. This is all back-end numbers. It's very simple when you're talking to a client. It's $9,262 to do this job. It is $0 to not do this job. You don't need to share what your material markup percentage is. You don't need to share anything. And I don't mean this in a negative way, right? It's basically the homeowner gets a price for the square footage of pavers in a specific place. And then you have your back-end numbers for whenever you're calling for deliveries and getting all these materials to the site. Those are your numbers. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared of these customers or these clients who try to ask you how many tons of base you're doing. Obviously, you want to be very educational and informative. You're not going to say, I'm not going to tell you how much base I'm bringing. But another way for you to go around that is we're doing 6 inches of base. We're doing 1/4 inch of sand, 1/4 inch of screed. I'm bringing in 525 square feet of pavers. I'm bringing polymeric sand. You're going to have polymeric sand in between the joints. You don't need to tell them you're bringing 7 bags, because what's going to happen is you quoted him for 7 bags and then it turns out you only needed 5. He watched it through the camera and now you got to reimburse him $60. Nah. It's $9,262 to do the job, just like I said. $0 to not do it. Very simple. And another thing, guys, I know, when you're new to the industry and you're trying to get your foot in the door, you don't have to be the cheapest guy. You could get really hurt like that. And at the end of the day, we're all in business to make money. When you see a number like this, 9,262, don't be the guy that's going to say, oh, I'm going to make this $8,000 so I could get the job. Because at the end of the day, those $1,200 is basically just eating right into your profit. And like I said, we're in this business to make money. Most of the time, if you know your numbers, you will not necessarily be the cheapest price, but you'll always give a very accurate price. I know for a fact, I can put money on it, that if I went to price this job and 5 other guys went to also price this job, I know for a fact that most of these guys that are coming into prices are pricing it at $20 a square foot. They probably don't even have a social media presence. They probably don't even have a Google page. They probably don't even have a website. And here I am with a legit company, licensed, insured, coming in at a great price, being honest, being educational. Now, who do you think is going to get the job? And many would say, oh, I'm being cheap. I'm not being cheap. I know my numbers. I know my overhead. I know my production capacity. I know my profit. I calculated everything. The numbers don't lie. And the best thing with knowing your numbers, when you're doing the job, you're making money. And for your client, they are getting a good product at a great price. All right, guys. So I hope this explains everything. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below. However, I do want you guys to know that these numbers are not universal. I've spent a lot of money going to seminars, creating spreadsheets, figuring out how to know my numbers. I have crazy spreadsheets in my computer that calculate my projected P&L, that calculate everything, and that's how I am able to come out with my man-hour rate to be $85 an hour. These numbers are not universal. This is the number that works for my company. Your company may be completely different. You may be $45 an hour. You may be $55 an hour. Whatever number it is, definitely figure that out and do your due diligence. With that being said, for those guys who are looking for a little bit of a deeper dive, a little bit more in depth on their business, figuring out these numbers and looking to scale year over year, I do have a link down below in the description. It's a link to a free training where I cover things just like this. So if you guys like this video, feel free to check it out. Otherwise, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram.